welcome to Wednesday night. Appreciate you tuning in again. I sent an email out today with the meeting that the elders and deacons had, explaining how we're going to begin to open things up. So be sure to check that email out and see what it had to say, because we will be resuming Wednesday night. We will be resuming Wednesday nights again soon, about mid-July. But again, all that information is in the email, and if for some reason you didn't get that or want it, I can print it off for you and make sure you get it and see it. But anyhow, for tonight's Wednesday night, this one's going to be a little different. Probably some might even say you're reaching a little bit with this text, but that's okay. You can tell me about it later if you don't particularly like it or you think I reached too far, but let's just get into it and see. This is from Genesis 40. This is in the part of Genesis that talks about Joseph. And I'm not going to, for the sake of time, I won't elaborate on all the story of Joseph. I assume you're familiar with it. He was sold by his brothers into slavery, went to Egypt, was sold there as a slave in Egypt to a man. He rose to prominence within that man's household, but the wife didn't appreciate Joseph rejecting her advances and lied to her husband that Joseph attacked her. Joseph was then thrown into prison. In prison, he rose to prominence, or at least was given a position of prominence within the prison of taking care of others. Today, we might call it a trustee, perhaps. And he then has the opportunity to meet a couple of men who used to serve the king, and he helps them out, and in so doing, later they bring him to the attention of the king. He's able to interpret the king's dreams, and he rises to prominence within Egypt. So kind of a cycle story that keeps going on, but that's the quick version of it. But this is Genesis 40, and this is while Joseph is in prison. Sometime later, the cupbearer and baker of the king of Egypt offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody of the house of the captain of the guard in the same prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, and he attended them. After they had been in custody for some time, each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were being held in prison, had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. When Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why do you both look so sad today?" "We both had dreams," they answered, "but there is no one to interpret them." Then Joseph said, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." And of course they do, and the story goes on from there. So, and again, I've already noted Joseph is in prison because of Potiphar's wife. And I think about it one way. Let me just kind of lay the groundwork this way. To be sold by your brothers into slavery and then your father lied to that you're dead, to be hated that much by your brothers, and then to go to Egypt and actually achieve some prominence there, or at least probably get a decent life or make something of yourself, the second time. Oh, and I also try to imagine it couldn't have been very pleasant being sold to the slave traders as they make their way to Egypt. That couldn't have been a pleasant life or a pleasant time. And then be sold as a slave, face the uncertainty of that, then make it as a slave, rise to some prominence, have the woman of the house lie about you because you're trying to do the right thing, and then to be cast into prison. I don't know. I would tend to think for most people it would make you a pretty hard person, in life. And but one of the things, there's just one little small thing in this text that I want to point out that's interesting to me. It's a trait that I see in Joseph. Joseph has always been an interesting person to me in Scripture. But there's an interesting trait that I see in Joseph that I just want to call attention to for a moment. Because I think it could very well be that this little trait is one of the things that may have helped make Joseph successful. And I guess to tip my hand a little bit, in essence, he doesn't let himself become a hard man. He probably was a careful man, but I think you see some evidence here he doesn't become a hard man. Did you notice there that Joseph notices that they're sad or dejected? I think was the word used in the text there. They're sad or they're dejected. And he asks, why? And then when they tell him, he goes forward with helping them understand why or deal with their sadness or their dejection. So in other words, the little thing I'm picking up on here is I'm noticing that you see that Joseph is someone who seems to still care. He seems to still care about others. And that's why I wanted to lay that little bit of groundwork earlier and just talk briefly that I would be tempted to think if I had gone through the things that Joseph has gone through, I don't know how caring I would still be. I don't know how caring I would still be about others. I think it would make me hard and bitter, or at least I worry that it would. That it would make me a very hard and bitter person. And even if I noticed that someone was sad or that someone was having a problem, my tendency is to think I would probably want to say, I don't care. I got enough problems of my own. I don't want to hear about yours. I don't want to deal with yours. You got your own. Go away. And here's the thing that I've noticed in life, and here's something that I've seen. And I can elaborate on this in personal ways, and you can elaborate it in your mind, in your way, because I'm sure that probably our examples are different, but our experiences are the same. But here's what I've noticed. People in life do not tend to notice your tears, and they do not tend to notice your sadness, and very often they do not notice your pain, but you know what they do notice? Your mistakes. They will not notice your pain, your tears, your sadness, but boy, do they remember your mistakes. And I'm telling you, I have found this to be true. And I think in all fairness, I've probably been guilty of this. There have been times when I have not noticed the sadness or pain or hurt of others and have just bulled on through something and made it worse. I'm sure I have. I don't have any doubts that I've done that. But I also know that it gets done a lot. And I can only speak from my experience. In other words, coming at this as a preacher, I've noticed that, because in a sense, at least within the church where you are, you're on a public stage. You have you're in the eye of the public, so to speak, at least for that little, maybe small bit of public, you're in that eye. And boy, I have noticed time and time again, if you make a mistake, that gets remembered forever. And boy, some people just do not forgive or forget mistakes. And it's one of those things that I've just learned to notice in life is that people can become so critical. And, again, I'm coming at it from a preacher perspective. Preachers are not any more perfect than anybody else is out there. They're not perfect people. And they have a lot of the same problems and struggles and those type of things. And in fact, I don't know if this is true or not, but at least this is how I feel. In fact, sometimes I think as a preacher, you even feel like there's not any way I can show my pain, tears, or sadness, because if you show weakness, they'll go after it, especially the ones that remember your mistakes. I was saddened to talk to a preacher here recently, not myself, but someone else, and he had been at his church for a while. And they had offered him a sabbatical where he could go away for a while. And it was interesting for him to say, and of course my first thought is, that sounds wonderful. You get a sabbatical? And he was like, I don't think I want to take it. I'm nervous about it. Why? Well, because he's got people that don't like him or he's made some mistakes and they remember those. And he's afraid that while he's gone on sabbatical, they'll work against him in the church and probably try to make it so when he comes back from sabbatical, he doesn't have a job. Isn't that sad? There's a sadness there. And let me go, okay, I always got to get my disclaimers in. I'm not saying mistakes shouldn't be dealt with. But here's the thing that I want to come at is it's very often in life, when someone makes a mistake, especially someone that you've known and is a good person, if someone makes a mistake, before you remember that mistake forever, maybe you need to ask, is there some pain or some sadness or some tears in their life that I'm not seeing? And remember some of that. Maybe that would be important if people did that sometimes before they blew up. See, for Joseph, it would have been very easy for him to not care in the least why they were sad. I can believe that prison, being sold as a slave and being made, and then even winding up in prison would make you a very hard person and a person that doesn't care. Because you see, as you go on through the story, you notice that Joseph cares. He notices their sadness, he asks what it is, and then he tries to help them resolve their sadness or to come to an understanding. And as you know the rest of the story, this was one of the things that sprung him later from prison because he showed kindness. Later, one of them that he showed this kindness to by noticing their sadness and helping them with their problem brought him to the attention of Pharaoh, who then brought him into his court, and then the rest is history, I guess, as they say. So anyhow, that's the thing that I noticed. Again, it's a little thing in the story. I hope I'm not reaching too far. I'm just going to say it strikes me that Joseph, a man who should be very, very hard in his life and not care much about others at this point, notices that they're sad, asks why, and then tries to help them. How much better a world would this be if people tried to notice and help people instead of just remembering and blowing up at their mistakes? Wouldn't this be a better world? So I leave it there with you. I appreciate you tuning in tonight and taking a chance to watch this. I hope the rest of your week goes well, and I pray that everything moves forward as we try to get the church reopened and open up for some more services and opportunities and times. So I will see you Sunday. Thanks. Hello, thought I would try this to see if anyone watched to the end. Let's just see. There was a man wanted to buy a parrot. He went to the pet store, and as he went to the pet store, he noticed there were 3 parrots, and they were all sitting on a perch. And he asked, he says, "Okay, how much is that one on the left?" And the store owner said, "Well, he's $500." And he said, "$500? Why so much money?" He says, "Well, this parrot knows how to run a computer." Okay. What about the middle parrot? "Well, he's $1,000. Wait a minute, why is he $1,000? Well, he can do everything the other parrot can do. However, he also knows how to program computers." Well, all right, what about the one on the far right? "Well, he's $2,000. $2,000? Why is he $2,000? Well, I don't know. I have never seen him do a thing, but the other 2 call him the boss." Okay, just wanted to see if anybody watched to the end. Take care.